Hey, everybody, it is Kendall Denise, and welcome to Unveiled Voices. I'm so glad that you are here. I am excited about today's show. We're talking about men and mental health and the barriers that some men have and how to break some of those barriers. I have the pleasure of having a panel with me today. So that's what we're talking about on this episode of Unveiled Voices. Hey everybody, I'm Kendall Denise, your favorite life coach, the remix coach. Life coach Kendall Denise. All right, so welcome to Unveiled Voices, where we amplify the stories of real people navigating life's most profound challenges and triumphs. Here, we explore the raw, unfiltered journeys that have shaped who they are today, the moments of joy and pain, the victories and the setbacks, and everything in between. This is a space where voices are heard, stories are shared, and healing begins. All right, so let me just tell you a little bit about the show. Unveiled Voices, I'm sorry, typically refers to revealing or uncovering true, authentic stories and perspectives that might have been hidden, silenced, or overlooked. The word unveil suggests lifting a veil or removing barriers, allowing for genuine expression to be visible. Right. So that's what we're going to do today. It's all about bringing the light to truths and narratives that deserve to be heard. And this is a narrative that definitely has to be heard. As you can see to the right of me, I will introduce my first guest. This is Charles Chisel Harris.
Hey,
Welcome to the show. Welcome to
hey,
the
hey,
show.
everyone, worldwide, come on in.
All right. Next, we have Arnold Jolivet the second. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you for being here. And then we have Chauncey Whitehead. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I so appreciate you.
Good evening to you. Thank you for having us on the show. And hey, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, it's going to be a good one. We have another guest coming in and we have comments already. So I know this is going to be a heck of a conversation. This sounds interesting. Yep, it's going to be interesting. So you'll see me looking down because I wanted to make sure I have my notes for this episode because this is going to be a powerful episode. And oftentimes you hear men say that women get an opportunity to speak candidly with one another and to share their feelings and emotions. And men sometimes don't have that same platform or that same space to be free. And when you free yourself, that's when you free others. And when you share your stories, you give other people permission to share theirs because no one wants to feel like they are alone. And oftentimes, from what I'm hearing, I've never been a man, but from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing personally and professionally, men need a platform and men need to talk about this. So a little bit about me for those that don't know. My name is Kendall Denise. I go by the Remix Coach. I've been a certified life coach for 25 years. I've had clients who are men. I've spoken to male groups and it's common. It's a common thread where men feel like they're not heard. So we want to take the time on Unveiled Voices today to make sure you guys are heard. So we are talking about mental health today, right? Mental health is so important. It's just as important. I'm looking at three guys that work out, that take care of their bodies, take care of themselves. And a lot of emphasis is put on physical health and less emphasis on mental health. So we're going to get into all of that as well. So what we're talking about is breaking the silence, why men struggle to share typically their emotional well-being or their mental health battles. So I'm going to start with you, Jolivet. When you were asked to be a part of this conversation, what was your first reaction?
Well, my first reaction is I was very happy that this was the topic of conversation. something that's not always talked about, especially in the circles with African Americans. So I was excited to be able to be a part of it, to be able to share some of my experiences, as well as be able to learn from the other brothers on the panel, and from you as well. So I was excited to hear that this was something that was going to be discussed.
Yes. And I'm going to get to you, Chauncey, and of course you, Charles, but I just want to read something to you. Mental health in Black men is a critical issue that has been a focus of various studies. Here are some key statistics. Um, According to the American Psychological Association, Black adults in the U.S. are more likely than white adults to report persistent symptoms of emotional distress, such as sadness and hopelessness. Black men are particularly with rates of depression and anxiety, often underreported due to cultural stigmas around mental health. I can't say the S word, taking yourself out of here. Those rates among Black men have increased and been steadily increasing between 2014 and 2019. There was a 30% increase in the suicide rate among Black Americans, with Black men being particularly affected. Right. For Black men ages 15 to 24, even going that young, it is the leading cause of death. Black men 15 to 24 is the leading cause of death. Society will have you thinking it's gunshots, it's violence, it's Black on Black crime, it's drugs, but it's actually not. This is the leading cause of death. Barriers to mental health. Black men are less likely to seek mental health services compared to other racial groups, with only 26.4% of Black and Hispanic men ages 18 to 44 who experience daily feelings of anxiety or depression. Accessing mental health services compared to other races, 45.4% of non-white men. Barriers include stigmas, lack of cultural competent care, socioeconomic factors like access to insurance, and we can go on and on. And unfortunately, just like everything else, hypertension, diabetes, everything else, we are losing ourselves rapidly due to instability when it comes to mental health and not saying something. Chauncey, when you were asked to be a part of this show, what was your first response and why did you say yes?
My first response was I was happy to be asked to be on the show. And I said yes because no matter what the subject is as it relates to men, I'm always willing to bring my insight to it. So I'm just a willing participant in any discussion as it relates to men, especially African American men.
Yes, and I appreciate that. It's important. So, Charles, if you guys didn't know, we did an interview and we talked about Black men and mental health. And Charles was brave enough to, and it's right here on my YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, check it out. One day we were outside and I just turned the camera on and I said, tell your story, talk about mental health. And he did. And that got a big response. And that was what, a 60-second video. So then I said, well, you definitely have to come, sit on the couch and really share your story. And he shared some very intimate things. And you want to talk about why you decided to share that? And if people haven't seen that, can you talk about some of the things that you shared and why is this important to you?
Well, I'm honored to be on the show,
Thank
and
you.
it was a no-brainer for me to come talking about health and wellness. I do physical training with men and women, and knowing how important it is. However, me personally, and with guys I talk to, we pretty much deal with the same things and don't really discuss that. And I don't want to go ahead of what the discussion. However, I know a lot of brothers go through the same thing, but we just don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So just to have a platform, and I thank you for allowing us to have this platform to discuss things that once men listen to this now and beyond on a replay, they're going to say, "Hey, I was feeling the same way."
Yeah.
So I said, if I feel this way, if all the guys feel the same way, it got to be a multitude of men that want to discuss things that we all seem to be going through.
Yeah. Yeah. Arnold, when I talk about mental health and I think about that, could you share some of your personal story? Share as much as you want or as little as you want, but just understand this is a safe space. And I'll tell everybody, even in the comments, whether you're watching live or the playback, this is a safe space. We don't want anything but honesty and positivity in the comments. And usually you guys are good with that on the channel. I don't have problems with that. But I don't want anybody judged. I don't want anybody, you guys get what I'm saying. But Arnold, if you can share some of your story, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you know, as black men, of course, you know, that means that we were once black boys or black children. And so in the at least for me growing up, you know, as a boy, whenever you felt pain, whether it be physical pain or emotional pain, you know, you're told to suck it up. You're told that, you know, boys don't cry, men don't cry, be tough. You know, all these things where we are conditioned to be able to hold our emotions in, to not really show any emotion. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times, you know, as you transition into to being a teenager and a young adult, a lot of times for me, you carry some of those same thoughts and beliefs where you hold things in, where you don't
Hmm.
really let your emotions to be seen or to be felt by any other people, or if you do, it's a very close circle. And so, you know, I saw a quote the other day. It said that as black men, if you see the color of my skin as a weapon, you will
Hmm.
always view me as an armed man, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, as black men, you sometimes we always feel like we have to have our guard up. We always have to be on alert. You know, as soon as you wake up and you go outside, you know, you're on alert with all the things in the workplace. You know, you have your guard up. Even when you're talking to other people, you have your guard up. And so, uh, for me, I have to be able to ways to be able to express myself, to be able
Hmm.
to find that release mentally, you know, in order to be able to have that balance in my life, you know, just even from a spiritual perspective, you know, the Bible
Hmm.
says is with the mind that we serve the Lord, right? So the mind is really the rudder to everything that we do. You know, thoughts are things. So what we think about, it essentially guides our life, especially on how we see each other. So for me, the mental health for me started with how do I see myself? What is my mental picture? What is the self image that I have of myself? And I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household, you know, with parents who always spoke life into me, you know, told me I could be anything that I wanted to be, you know, who fostered and really supported, you know, the things that I wanted to do. But sometimes you have to create that for yourself. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have that around you, and it's challenging on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis. Sometimes, you know, as the old song says, your mind will sometimes play tricks on you.
Mhm.
So for me, you always have to constantly be mindful and be at the gate of your mind, making sure that you know what you're exposing yourself to. You know, who are you talking to? Who are you
Yeah.
letting in your inner circle? So it's a constant battle for me, you know, to be able to make sure that I'm putting good things in my mind and I'm doing the things to feed myself mentally, not just physically, not just spiritually, but also mentally as well. So, you know, anyone who tells you that it's not a challenge, I don't know how honest that they're being, because it doesn't matter what level you are, you know, it's a constant battle for your mind. So to me,
Yeah.
it's a daily fight, you know, to be able to stay in the right mental space, to be able to be good for myself and to be able to be good for my family.
Yes, I love that. Well said. You talked about doing things for your mental health. You want to share some of the things you do to strengthen your mental health?
Absolutely. So, you know, what you're reading daily, you know, try to read positive affirmations on a daily basis. You know, try to put myself in environments where, you know, there are things that are positive, whether it be taking walks, you know, whether it be, you know, going on a drive, putting yourself in a peaceful setting, so many, different things, and for every person is different, so for me,
Yeah.
I like to be around water is
Mhm.
peaceful for me, is
Yeah.
tranquil. I like the calmness of it, so making
Mhm.
sure that, you know I heard someone say one time, you have to put yourself or put systems in place when you're in your right mind to help you when you're out of your right mind, right?
Come on.
So
Yeah.
you can't wait till things go haywire to try to put systems in place to help you. So you try to put those systems in place when everything is good, when everything's going well. So when things go crazy, as they always will at some point in time, you
Mhm.
already have those systems or those people in place
Yeah.
that that will support you. Because one conversation with the wrong person, when things aren't going right for you mentally, can really set you in the wrong direction.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. And you talked about cultural attitudes and stigmas, um, like man up. Even when I work with children, I give the boys permission to cry because you have to condition a child at a young age to be free to share their feelings and emotions and not say that the emotions are just for girls and don't cry and act like a girl, because you're teaching boys that if they cry or if they share emotions and they're acting soft or acting like a girl. And I think we have to restructure our children so they're not, our age, still struggling with certain mental health residue, if you will. But cultural expectations around masculinity and mental toughness in the Black community often discourages men from seeking help, as we talked about. I want to talk about water. Water has a positive effects on your body when you're close to water. Even staring at bodies of waters fills us with a meditative sense of calm and feeling contentment. So all of you water lovers out there who think that I just like to see water, you like to see water and it gives you peace because it does affect you internally. Chauncey, I want to hear a little bit about your story as far as growing up, and if you shared the same sentiment as Arnold and Charles. I want to ask you that too, because that's what's happening. And a lot of times in the Black community, man up and don't cry. Did you have that same experience as well?
I shared a lot of the same experiences that Arnold did. Like most of us, I'm a product of the 60s and the early 70s.
Hmm.
I'm the youngest of two older brothers, two older sisters, a military family. So my dad he wasn't that diehard man up type of a
Hmm.
guy, but he was a product of his environment, of his generation, where he never told us that boys or young men don't cry, but he never said they didn't either. So
Yeah.
it was one of those kind of things when we were young. But I'll start as a grown man. I
Hmm.
realized that it was difficult to find safe spaces, not only for men to cry, but for men to just say they need some help. As a fitness trainer, one of the biggest problems in the training community that I've seen, it's difficult not only for men to seek mental health, but even physical health. A lot of times men don't want to go to a personal trainer because they feel weak, that they don't know where to go and they don't know what to
Mm.
do. They don't know how to lift weights. So quite
Mm.
naturally, if it's difficult for you to ask for help from something that should be natural, like your physical condition, what makes anyone think a man would seek professional help, counseling, if they need it? I can
Yes.
tell you as a fitness professional that I have gone to counseling. Counseling has been good for me. When I'm
Mhm.
training individuals, and every single day, 99% of my clients don't want to hear what's going on
Mhm.
in my life. They're not being nasty, but they don't want to hear about it. But
Yeah.
sometimes I need to release in order to feed them. In almost in any profession, there's nothing wrong with it. But again, I'll say this: there's so many men that won't even go to a fitness trainer because they feel less than. So what makes it one think that if a person needed some professional help on the counseling and the mental health side, that they would go. So I just think it's important that men at the sound of my voice, or anyone at the sound of my voice, if you need some help, whatever it is, tell the young man, tell the grown man, it's okay to ask for help. We don't have the answers to everything. If we do keep it in, I've watched my dad, who was an amazing human being, my role model, but he was one of those men that was built where you kept everything in, the good, the
Yeah.
bad, and the ugly. He was of that 20s and 30s era where you just kept I put food on the table, didn't I? I got,
Yeah.
I fed you. Where I know that sometimes inside that it was difficult for him. So I'm trying to change
Yeah.
that amongst a lot of the young men, that if you need some help with your mental health, it's okay to ask. Whatever you need, it's okay to ask for.
Yes. Well said. And it's so true. It's okay. I quote this all the time, been quoting it for years. One of my favorite speakers is Les Brown. And he said, we ask for help not because we're weak, but because we want to remain strong. And
Excellent.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and I think sometimes men feel like, and I've talked to you about this, like you got to be the superhero, you got to handle all the problems and situations, you don't have time. I know talking to Charles, he would express how he feels, and then he'll stop and say, I don't want to whine, I don't want to complain. I'm like, that's not what you're doing. Where did that come from? Where you think that if you share your feelings and emotions, you feel like you can't release? Because he says, I listen to everybody else, so I don't want to, and we had to really get through that barrier. But where does that come from?
Like Arnold and Chauncey said, us growing up in the era that we grew up, you couldn't, cry. Not only it wasn't a situation where, you fall down, play sports. We all been athletes growing up. Even in the neighborhood, if you hang around a bunch of guys as teenagers, you can't get hit in a football game and go home and start crying, because you would be considered, I don't want to use the P word, but you would be considered
Soft.
weak, soft among, even your peers at that age. So you had to always tough it up and not be able to be emotionally able to communicate that way. So we developed, in my childhood, I didn't have a safe place anywhere to communicate. I didn't even see my parents communicate. So I didn't know how. I didn't know how to articulate myself in a way emotionally. I had to learn how to internalize that. Even as an adult, it affected me in relationships, just carrying that around inside of me. Because we in grown up bodies, but we still kids. So basically, having developed those bad habits of communication started in my childhood, not having a safe place. And when you pretty much open up to individuals, especially in relationships, and you open up to somebody and finally release that, and it's held against you, that hurts. So once you do it, and it's already difficult to do it up front.
Yeah.
But when you do it and you get shut down, you just don't totally shut down, not talk at all.
Right. No, I get that. And we're going to get to that, how we can, you're right, I see him, how women can play a part in that. And even starting, we're going to work, our next guest came on, so we're going to definitely bring him on to be part of this conversation. But as you talked about, like in your past, how you tried to share, and you can kind of test it and see how much you can share. And then if it's used against you, it kind of puts you back in the shell. So then now you are holding all of these feelings and emotions, and then it's going to explode.
Yes.
And that's what happens often. But a lot of times that starts from typically somebody's mom, not your mom in general, but just in general, somebody's mom sometimes. And people don't understand that your mom is a man's first introduction to womanhood, right? And sometimes if your mom doesn't say the proper things the proper way or different things, that's your first example. Like if you told your mom something, let's just say, or anybody out there told their mom something, and then they used it against them, or they said, well, don't cry, because it's unfortunately, it's not only just the fathers that say, man up, don't cry. It's some of the mothers as well. And then that's the first introduction to a woman. And then a lot of times they say people choose women like men choose women like their mom. And then sometimes it goes through and you don't even know, if you are used to being treated a certain way or interacting in a certain way, it kind of continues the thread of your life. But I want to introduce Curtis Muhammad to the conversation. He's waving in the background. Hey, Curtis.
Hey, how you doing?
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining this conversation, as we're already enthralled in everything. I asked the fellas out earlier as we started about this conversation and why was it important for you to be a part of this conversation? And thank you.
Thank you. I like to give the greetings to all the guests. As we say in peace, assalamu alaikum. I like to share some things that,
Alaikum
thank you.
assalam.
Mental health has a lot of stigmas. Being a ex-athlete, Charles already stated it earlier that and growing up in an environment where you act soft, you get punked.
Mhm.
So you have to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Being the oldest, there was no manual except on-the-job training
Mhm.
by a single mom. And pretty much everything that you learned was either through that or through the relationship that she had with my father. So
Mhm.
moving on, I think the mental health is just finally this year is getting a little bit more status, but
Mhm.
because of the way things have been, a lot of people don't like to say it too much because with social media, you get hassled, stigmatized.
Mhm.
And I always say this, when you put your, old folks always say, don't put your personal business out there in public. Because when you do, you got to deal with the circumstances that come with it. So, being since '89 in the nation, we've gone through a lot of stuff in dealing with our people, and a lot of people don't understand that it's just like being a pastor of a church or being a doctor or a police officer. You internalize a lot of those people's issues, and
Mhm.
then at the point I'm at now, as me and Charles, we're hitting 60, so we're like, I'm
Wait a
thinking,
minute. Hold up. You almost
You
60?
weren't supposed to say that, Curtis. All right.
Wait
oh,
a
okay, I'm
minute.
sorry.
Stop.
All right, my fault. But you come to the realization, you're saying, after all of these past experiences and helping our people, as a pastor or as a minister or as an imam or as a person of faith, you're saying,
Mhm.
wow, we still keep repeating the same old thing as a dog
Mhm.
goes back to his vomit, and you're trying to figure out the problem or the solution and fixing it. So
Yeah.
that puts a drain on you, and
Yeah.
then mentally you just keep all this stuff built up. But the good thing is I've always had outlets, and my
Mhm.
outlets have been professionally running track,
Mhm.
working out, talking with Charles sometimes, and we work out. And that's the best thing is your diet, your
Yes.
attitude, and talking with somebody or talking to a higher person and getting those emotions out. Even if
Yeah.
it's just a punching bag, punch.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
it.
Yes, I love that. And you talked about where you come from. You talked about you and Charles being almost 60. You talked about the neighborhood. I want to share that this is Charles's old friend since 7 years old. So you come from the same place. You come from the same
Yes,
background.
same
Right.
environment,
So
same
the same
neighborhood.
environment. So I noticed that you both said the same thing. But then Arnold, where are you from?
I'm from Baltimore.
Right. Where are you from, Chauncey?
I'm a military brat. I
So you've
was
been
born
everywhere.
in Louisiana, all over the
Yeah.
country, all over the world.
So you're all over the world. And
That's
and when I and you're going to relate to everybody all over the world. So just because you guys are here in Baltimore, unfortunately, it's not an anomaly. Like this is the only where it happens all across the world when it comes to men being vulnerable to share their feelings. Chauncey, I want to ask you what role or what challenges have you had that affected your relationships both personally and professionally when it comes to mental health? Whether it was anxiety, whether it was depression, whether it was stress, whatever it was that you felt like you had to hold in and not share. How did that affect you professionally or personally?
personally and professionally, and it's been brought up already, and I believe Charles brought it up. It's the fear of it being used against you.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, I know in my life, it was a legitimate fear. Then sometimes it was an excuse just for me to shut off and not talk about what I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very difficult when you individual like myself, that is pretty private, and I'm an extrovert. But when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to my feelings, it's always been a difficult for me to talk about it.
Yes.
So when I do, and maybe what I'm trying to explain to my mate or to a friend is, I don't know, misconstrued, or we get lost in the communication.
Mm-hmm.
It used to allow me to say, well, you know what, you didn't understand what I was talking about anyway, so you don't want to hear it, so I ain't never going to tell you again. Rather
Yeah.
than helping that individual,
Right.
whether it be a mate or a male friend, actually
Yeah.
understand what I'm trying to say, instead of just cutting it off and saying, well, don't nobody want to hear what I got to say. Then all of a sudden, you're
Yeah.
not talking, I'm not talking, but I'm
Yeah.
reacting on not saying because you're not talking. So that's been the most difficult in my personal,
Yeah.
and somewhat my professional, but through counseling and through help, and then working within myself to try to change that, to identify it and work at it, I've become better at communicating what's exactly going on inside of me without the fear of you not understanding it, you throwing it back to me, and making sure that I'm okay by communicating.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. And you talked about therapy and counseling. You talked about that a couple of times. I think it's so important to be able to seek help in that way. Any other, Philip and Charles, I know you wanted to share your experience, because I think it's so important um, to seek therapy, to seek coaching, to seek counseling. How has that been part of your life, and how has that changed your perspective on certain things just by going to therapy?
Well, I started in 2020. That was probably one of the lowest points of my life, going through the pandemic, breakup, business closed, so on and so forth. And I didn't have anyone to communicate with. And basically, having a therapist in my life was imperative, because you have someone that's professional and not
Mm-hmm.
judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to really show you that you really are not the problem. But sometimes we take on the problem and it's just us. So just having that professional perspective was paramount. Sometimes you can talk to your friends and someone that's close to you, they can't really relate,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not going to be as transparent,
Yeah.
or they might not want to hurt your feelings because you might be temperamental or
Yeah.
sensitive. But when you have someone that's really professional and know what to say, when to back off, when to ask you the right question,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that was very important. And I would highly recommend anyone. It's very affordable. You can always get the right person to really talk to you and help you through the process. But you gotta talk to someone.
Yeah. Yeah. What Curtis and Arnold, what about you? Have you ever been to therapy? And is it something that you do on the regular basis? Is it something that you've done one time? And if you haven't, are you opposed to it? So I'll start with you, Arnold.
Yeah. You know, yes, to answer your question as far as therapy, but therapy comes in a lot of different
Mm-hmm.
forms.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, one of the things that really out a lot, especially at some of the lower points in life, is getting around other men, right?
Mm-hmm.
Men's fellowships, environments where you're able to hear men uh, talk candidly about what they're going through as well. A lot of times, as men, we may feel like that we are the only ones that are going through a certain situation, or it's only happening to us. But when you see another brother that is dealing with something similar than what you're dealing with, or who has come through what you're dealing with, it really gives you hope, it gives you inspiration.
Yeah.
You're able to hear how they handle the situation, which could be a lifesaver. You could hear
Right.
something in a conversation with someone that can help you in how you handle something where you may have done it totally differently than that person.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to get around, whether you're doing a one-on-one therapy session with a professional, or if you're surrounding yourselves. We talked about being in groups with
Yeah.
like-minded people who are positive. But for me, I think one of the key for us as men, especially Black men, is how do we manage failure, right?
Mm,
How do we manage failed relationships? How do we manage a failure in the workplace, or loss of a job, or loss of income? As men,
mhm.
we're told that we are to guide, provide, and protect our families. And a lot of times, as men, we identify ourselves with what we do. The first thing people
Yes.
ask you, "What do you do for a living?" And with that one question, they size up everything. They size up where you live, what your income may be. And so if you're a provider, and for whatever reason, loss of a job, loss of a business, whatever may happen that the world would consider a failure, sometimes that can be crushing, because you have in your mind so many responsibilities, so many people caring or relying on you, that how you manage that, how you bounce back from those failures, can be critical to your mentality and your mindset. So the key for me is not only managing the success, but how do we manage, or how do we help each other manage manage failure. It could be something,
That's good.
I could say Chauncey could give some insight on how he was able to bounce back from his business failing, and could help me, because I'm learning from what he went through.
That's
But
good.
the problem
Mhm.
is, if we don't share those experiences with one another, how can we help each other?
Yes.
So that's the key for me, and that's the importance to me of getting in those type of environments.
That's super important. I mean, you said a mouthful there. I totally agree. I believe that men need other men. Um, and I'm going to talk to the ladies out there for a moment. A lot of times men get slack when they want to go out and they want to go with their friends. Now, we're not talking about going to Dominican Republic for 10 days and 20 days and all of these trips that people talk about. The
That's
golf, the
therapy.
golf,
That's
the
just
golf,
therapy.
right? The
That's just
golf trip.
therapy.
You're right, right, right. It's water here. Come on, slow your roll. You're going for 20 days. But anyway, I think it's important. And I want to talk to the ladies. If your guy says that he's going to hang out with his friend, allow him to do that. If he's saying he's going golfing, don't pitch a fit. Allow him to do that, to have his space with other men. Because as you heard Arnold say, men need other men. I totally agree with that, because there's certain things that that what Charles is going through, or what Curtis is going through, Chauncey, Arnold, you can relate in a different way. So I think it's important to be able to have those conversations, because you're freeing each other and you're helping each other just by getting it out, because keeping it in, heart attacks, strokes,
Yes. Yes.
all of that, it's happening on a regular basis. I don't know if your feed is like mine on Facebook. Every time you turn around, somebody's passing away, heart attack, stroke, dealing with a lot of things, because it is not healthy to hold things in. I just did a video that I posted about stress and anxiety. 75 to 90% of people go to the doctor for stress. That's why they go 75% to 90%. Every time they go to the doctor, it's from stress related issues. So you have to get that out, because it could kill you. And that's the bottom line. So you have to have a safe place where you're able to express yourselves. And women, I'm going to talk to you again when it comes to a man sharing with you. If he is honest enough to be vulnerable with you and honest enough to share part of his story, part of his journey, there has to be no judgment and no talking. You have to allow him to share that story with you, because the minute that you judge, or the minute that you use it against him, you lost him. That's it. That's it. And he's going to talk to someone else, and it might not be you. It might be another woman. It might be somebody at work. It might be one of his friends. And that's when emotional infidelity starts. Because if he cannot talk to the person that's closest to him, then he's going to talk to someone else. And once you lose him emotionally, you might as well wrap it up. It's over. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier just having that safe space to really express your emotions with somebody, your significant other, of course. You that should be your home base and where you should be able to do that. However, that's really delicate, because you got to feel like you can be transparent,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you really can, because you still want to be the man, like Arnold said, the protector, the provider, and you don't want to appear weak in that situation. And because you want to be strong, especially if you have kids, you own a business, or you providing financially. So we've been taught to really put your head down, keep your chin up, and just keep it moving. But like you said, I mean, being in the fitness arena, that leads to heart attacks, strokes, a lot of different,
Mm-hmm.
migraines,
Mm-hmm.
back pain,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And your body will tell you what's going on
Mm-hmm.
emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Your body is an indicator of what's going on inside 95% of the time. So a lot of times you just have to release it. So we, as men, we want that safe place, but a lot of times you have to really feel comfortable with the person that you're with,
Yeah.
and that may take time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just really, once a man really can feel safe and
Yeah.
comfortable talking to women, it's going to be a really great and
Yeah.
rewarding relationship.
Yeah, but we're more alike than different, and we need each other. The women out there that says, "I don't need no man," the man's like, "I'm just going to be." That's not how God designed it to be. We're supposed to be there for one another. We're more alike than different. And I think so many times people are like, "Well, men say this and do this, or women say," and I think sometimes it's like the battle of the sexes, and we have to come together for all of our mental health. You know what I mean? To be stable when it comes to mental health.
Mhm.
Curtis, I want to talk to you about therapy. Have you ever gone to therapy? And if so, what was that experience like for you?
Um, when it comes to therapy, no, I'm not opposed to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as I stated earlier, for me, therapy has always been either going to my imam or uh, exercising,
Mm-hmm.
working out, swimming
Mm-hmm.
pool. I have a motorcycle. I'm always on that motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
It solves almost 85% of my problems.
Yeah.
Uh, and as far as, like I said, my spouse, my wife, my longtime friend, we've been together for almost 40 years.
Wow.
So 38 years of marriage, 40 years of knowing each other.
Wow.
Wow. That's
And we will share everything, and pretty much if I have a problem, I'll go to her and ask her what she think on this. And being in business, when I started out 35 years ago, not everybody was in my corner when I said I was going to start my own business and leave the government. So, I mean, even when your mama's not in your corner thinking, you should stay with
yeah.
that government job or stay on that plantation,
Mm-hmm.
you have second thoughts. And then moving
Yeah.
forward, as people got in, this is one thing I always remembered, and I read it in a couple books. Business is warfare. And
Mm-hmm.
in warfare, you're going to have some losses and you're going to have some wins.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing is endure to the end. That's the bottom line. Endure
Yeah.
to the end, not to the swiftest or the fastest, but he endures the end. And for me, as Charles stated, when the pandemic came, we thought it was the end of the world.
Yeah.
For me, I thought it was the end of the world. And, but I took a mindset of business because I've been through the first problems we had, I think, when the mortgage price crashed,
Mm-hmm.
when the mortgage crashes, and I had properties, and it was the same thing. So
Mm-hmm.
moving into now, when the pandemic happened, I just went straight to the car places of the transportation business that I run and told them, hey, here's my vehicles. You can come and get them. I don't care no more because all I worried about was food, shelter, and clothing. That was the only thing I worried about
Mm-hmm.
because you're going in survival mode.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and saying that survival mode, you don't think about being depressed or being this and being that because it's the hustle that keeps you from not being depressed. Now, don't get me wrong. You're gonna have a period you may just bust out and cry, but
Yeah.
you're by yourself. Or you may just say, hey, go on, man, I'm a failure. But at some point you're gonna pick yourself back up because these are just mechanisms that you
Yeah.
have that makes you, it makes you who you are, makes you
Yeah.
to be on top because not everybody can run a business. Let's make that
Yeah.
very clear. A
Yeah.
business takes a special person to do. And they're going to have to accept the failures that come with it and the good days that come. There's bad and good days. There's nothing to say. It's going to be bad and good days. So for me, I usually, those would be my outlets right there. I never, I always saw talking to another person is like, you know, like Tony Soprano laying down on the couch talking to his therapist and is giving out information. And then you say, oh, shucks, I'm in trouble. I told too much, you know. But at the end of the day, I'm just saying, I think all people, you know, even in the military, my brother said he's a military brat. Most military men got to get counseling or get counseling for PTSD, which is very severe. My pop was a victim of the Vietnam, and Vietnam did a lot to our black men. Coming back home, they didn't get no treatment, they didn't get nothing. They treated them like addicts, and then when they try to put down on their application to get a job for the government or the post office and stuff, when they saw that PTSD on that DD-214 or something that they had that was mental, it was like a negative. It was like a black mark for them. So a lot of people, even like I said, the brother who's, you know, military brat, he can verify that with what I'm saying. It's a stigma, you know, for us as black men in this country. Other folks, it's cool. Everybody else is cool. For us, no way.
Absolutely. You talked about PTSD, and most people associate that with military because that's the loudest voice, if you will. But PTSD, there's a lot of childhood trauma that a lot of black men, if you think about black people, we were born into trauma. How we got here, you know, if we really want to go through the history, we were born in trauma. And then when your mother is carrying you, whatever she experienced, that is in your bloodstream through the umbilical cord. So parents unknowingly are passing trauma to their children. So when you react a certain way or certain things happen, it's not solely based on how you are or your personality. So PTSD from childhood trauma, like Charles says, we talk about it all the time. Like my little girl is with your little boy. That's what that is, because we are adults and children's bodies. And until we heal from some of the past traumas, whatever that is, big T's, little T's. So big traumas and little traumas. So big T's are like the worst things that could ever happen to you. And the little traumas, it could be when you moved away from your home, or you had to leave your best friend, or you had to move to several places whatever it is, whatever you carried as a child, you're still carrying that as an adult. And that's why you have to be able to talk to someone. What you have to be able to have a loud outlet. And a lot of men feel like they don't have an outlet from what I'm hearing. But I'm looking at all four of you. You are all into Jolivet. You work out. You know, Curtis, you work out. You run track professionally, semi-professionally. Your bike, and then Chauncey and Charles are both fitness trainers. So some people may be looking at you guys like, well, you probably don't have anything to worry about. You work out, that's your outlet. There's nothing going on with you. What are some of the misconceptions that people have about men who maybe look nice, have a nice body, work out? What are some of the misconceptions that they have if they see you smiling or happy? What do you think some of those misconceptions are?
And I mean, Chauncey probably can piggyback on this. It's worse. And I mean, all these guys, they on here because these guys are positive. So it's like we always have to be that way. You know, even when we're not, we got to be positive. If I go to the gym at 5 a.m, if I had a bad night the night before, I have to get up and motivate 20 other people all that day. And I may not feel like doing it, but people, they pulling from me. They want that. And I love doing it. Don't get me wrong. However, once you in a professional or business owner, we all are business owners, you always have to be on your A game. At the supermarket, at the post office, wherever you go, you got to be smiling, upbeat, even when you don't feel like it, because you can't have a bad day in this profession. So, I mean, Chauncey relate to that, which makes it worse. Because where do we go? Where do we go to have our outlet or have our bad day or our temper tantrums, whatever, or a shoulder to cry on? Because most people say, "Oh, you always upbeat. You can't have a bad day. You can't have a moment." The world should know how you really are, and that's not fair because we are human too. So I
Mm-hmm.
know Chauncey probably can relate to
Mm-hmm.
that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Charles. And as Curtis said, that's why it's important for me to be on this call, even though I have to get up every morning at 3:45. Anytime I have an opportunity to talk to other brothers about mental health or what's going on, that's going to help me, give me the strength. Because sometimes when people come to train with individuals like Charles and I, they really don't want to hear that we had a bad night or we they want our energy, and I totally get it. But we have an opportunity to get the energy back. That's why this call is important. I got these three brothers on this call tonight, and we're talking, we're fellowshipping, we're talking about the things that we've gone through, mental health. It's going to help me. But some men will use the excuse they don't have anyone to talk to. There
Mm-hmm.
is people to talk to, whether it be professionally or, like Curtis said, some good men in your circle, or you
Mm-hmm.
have a good mate. There is someone to talk to, and it can help you. Now, sometimes we have to do the self where we have to go find that person to talk to and, put down our vulnerabilities and some of our
Mhm.
fears and say, let's have a conversation. Kind of like what we're doing here tonight.
Yeah.
Hopefully men that are listening will find some good men to talk to, or if they need to
Mm-hmm.
seek professional help, that's
Mm-hmm.
okay too. But a
Mm-hmm.
conversation is what's
Yeah.
important.
Think
Yeah,
so.
so for me, again, we talked about systems. For me, working out is part of my mental health regimen, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's part of a way for me to one of the reasons I like working out, especially in the morning, is it kind of sets the tone, for my day. Um, so it's necessary, and I think it's important for us as men to have accountability partners, right?
Yeah.
Someone who, you know, you see before on social media say, check on your strong friend.
Mm-hmm.
Check on your friend that always
Mm-hmm.
checks on everybody else, always looks out for everybody else. Check on that person, right? Because and sometimes it can just be, hey man,
Yep.
just thinking about you. How's everything going? How's everything really going? Because a lot of times we, as men, as soon as we leave out that door, we got to put that facade on. We have to put that mask on, for the rest of the world. So really, it's about having someone who you can uh, be accountable to, and if something is going wrong, because it's easy to get picked off, when you're singled out. If you look at nature, the,
Yeah.
the the animals that are prey to get picked off are the ones that are singled out, that are by themselves. So it's very important to have someone, a group of people, that you can talk to. I have, conversations with my wife. We talk. She's my accountability partner. But
Mm-hmm.
you also have to have a man who has been through some of the things that you've
Mm-hmm.
been through, who is going what you're going through, and someone that you can relate to on that level, to just be a sounding board.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a matter of having a sounding board.
Yeah, somebody that has shared experiences that can be able to understand and relate and maybe tell you, like some of you said, how I got over this, or when I experienced that, this happened. Because I can only imagine that you guys feel alone even when you're in the same room with another man. Like what is the barrier that stands in between men sharing their feelings and emotions? Any one of you can answer that.
Well, the barrier is, like we say, even as children, you want to always be, looked at as being strong, especially around a bunch of guys. Unless you just have, men that really are in the same predicament or situation. Other than you just have to man up because you just want to always, even subconsciously, feel like it seemed like you got it all together physically, economically, sexually, financially,
Mhm.
whatever, emotionally, intellectually around men. We just been been groomed to always have it all together, even when we don't have it together.
Yeah. But how do you break the ice? And someone else can answer that question as well. But how do you break the ice with another guy? Maybe you're at the gym working out or you're at work. How do you break the ice so the facade, so the veil can be lifted? Because of imagine, like you said, economically, you're comparing yourself. And I know social media has a lot to do with it.
Yes.
Society has a lot to do with it. So I definitely want to ask about how societal roles and social media and all of that. But if anybody wants to piggyback off of what Charles is saying, and how do we erase that and break the barrier so men can start speaking to one another and share their experiences?
Yeah, I think we just have to have the courage to be vulnerable, enough. And sometimes it just takes that, you could be in a group of people, nobody is talking about their situation. It just takes that one person, to jump in that water, and it kind of sets everything off. So you have to be vulnerable. And I think, for me, once you get to a certain point in life where you've been through some stuff that
Mm-hmm.
you really don't care what people think about you. Sometimes if you're hungry enough, if you're thirsty enough, if you're seeking help, you don't care about. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it's the stigma, right? If I were to go out here and injure my arm, everybody's gonna tell me, oh man, you need to go to the doctor, you need to go to the
Mm-hmm.
ER. But if
Yep.
I tell somebody I'm feeling a certain kind of way, I think I
Yep.
need to get some help, they might be, oh, you don't need to do that. You just push through it, or whatever it may be. So again, it's that stigma between the physical health and the mental health. But again, it takes courage, right? It takes courage to be vulnerable. It takes courage to peel back those layers to reveal, who you really are. And sometimes that's really the only way that you can get help. That's the really only way you can have a real relationship, whether it be with,
Yeah.
your mate, or with, a good friend, someone you've known for a while, or you may just been, it's just by having that vulnerability. And as men, quite honestly, we don't do that. We don't do that enough.
Yeah. What Curtis, I know you had your finger up.
Um, piggyback off of that, if anybody remember the show that came on, the series called The Shy,
Hmm.
in that movie, they touched on that part with the group of men that was in there, and they had a sit down like once a week, and they shared the experiences, what they were going through. They went into a whole bunch of challenges that they had to meet, and then, of course, some of the elders gave the best advice of what they went through, just like the brother just said before me, and
Yeah.
shared it, and then they went ahead and acted on it right then and there.
Yeah.
But to come out or break out to remove the veil. Unfortunately, we live in an ungodly world.
Hmm.
And if this was a godly world that we lived in, then apparently we could have these talks as men openly and have bigger groups to help us move on, because still we
Yeah.
haven't moved on from slavery. And a lot of people
Yeah.
keep saying, oh, get over it. It happened a long time ago. But you got to understand, sis, as you said earlier, from the mother, that was passed on to us.
Yeah.
We're only a few generations out of Jim
Yeah.
Crow.
Hmm.
Two daddies out of Jim Crow, two mommies out of slavery. So
Yes.
Hmm.
at the end of the day, those feelings and what they went through and internalized has been passed on
Yeah.
to us. And we never got any type of physical, any type of
Yes.
therapy, any type of emotional healing,
Yeah.
and who to go to. Because
Yeah.
our trust was thinking that everybody we could talk to, even if we go to, certain people,
Yeah.
they sometimes fail you. So my best
Yeah.
thing is a lesson plan. We were taught lesson plan 19, rise above the emotion, your emotions, into the thinking of God. And that is the best way I try to resolve most of my issues that I have, especially when it comes to business. And business,
Yeah.
you got to talk to everybody. Like this group, I have the same chats with other people in business, and we talk about all our problems and what we go through,
Yeah.
what we had. And What you think about this car? What you think about that? We went through all that when we have these conversations.
Yeah.
We meet once a month, and we just sit down as owners, and we just have everything comes out on the table,
Yeah.
from being a caregiver for your family member to everything, and it all comes out.
Yeah.
And then we just move on to, well, you older than me, so how did you deal with running the business and taking care of your dad and mom at the same time? You older than
That's it.
me, so that's how the feedback, as they say, the family
Yeah.
came back and helped me into still keep fighting, because this is going to be a fight. We're still in it. It's
Yeah.
never going to end. But if you can
Yeah.
deal with it, you can grow.
Yes. I thank you for that. And thank you everybody who is watching. We're going to end shortly, but thank you everybody who's watching. Thank you for your comments, whether you're commenting live if or the playback. If you have any questions, everyone is saying it's a great conversation. It's a needed conversation. So if you have a question, or if you are struggling right now and you're a man who's watching, or you're a wife or girlfriend and you know that your man is struggling, if you have a question for these fellas, definitely drop it in the comments. It's very important that you do that. I like what you said, Curtis, about reaching back to the young ones. I think it's important to do that. Chauncey, when you are going through it, whatever that means to you, whatever that looks like to you, when you feel like your mental health is challenged, or you feel overwhelmed, whatever the case may be, how do you still work? Because somebody needs to hear that when you're not feeling your best, when you have to get up at 3:45 a.m. and you have to inspire other people. How do you give somebody your best and your all when you're depleted in some areas?
Now at this stage and where I'm at in my life, prayer and practice is what I do. So that's what
Yeah.
makes what helps me through it. If I was younger and not as experienced on how to get through that part of the depletion, whether it be emotionally or spiritually, I probably wouldn't be able to get through that day. But I've
Yeah.
learned through prayer and practice how to get through a day where my cup may not be full, or early morning where my cup might not be full, and these individuals have to work out, as Charles knows, and we have to send them off to work positive, and we may not be that positive that morning. But prayer and practice is what have gotten me through. Thank God.
Yeah. I love that. Um, God is important, you know what I mean? To have when we talk about calling on friends and calling on family, having that relationship with God is crucial. Because sometimes you got to open up the book. Sometimes that's all you have. Sometimes that's all you need, I guess, to get through that second of the day. Because life is lifing. You know what I mean? Things constantly happen. The older we get, we're experiencing loss. We're experiencing tragedies and traumas, and professional issues and personal issues and relationships, and there's so much out here. What would you tell a young brother who is watching right now, and he's not there where all of us of a certain age, and he's not there, he doesn't have friends that he can talk to, there are no men groups that he's aware of, and he feels like he's suffering in silence, and he doesn't even know what to do or who to call? What advice would you give that young brother?
Oh, you
Anyone.
talking to me?
And anyone who wants to answer, I would like to hear all from all of you, because we're going to send this out to some of the young men. I had a mother reach out to me, and it was a younger man, and he saw the show with Charles, and she found out that when he was younger, he tried to take himself out of here, and that he was still dealing with certain emotional and mental issues just because of life. But then you're dealing with men who have children, right? Who have wives, who are out there feeling like they have the weight on their shoulders, and they don't know what to do, and they're not to the place where you all are. So what advice would you give a young man struggling with his mental health, whether depression or just overwhelmed with life right now?
I mean, I would say, quickly, basically, just keep positivity in your life as much as possible. I still do it now. I do it today with my earpod. I'm always listening to someone. You could choose. It could be Les Brown, or I don't know. It's millions of motivational speakers out there. It could be inspirational music.
Mhm.
So you got to always feel yourself constantly, you know, continually do it in the car. Sometimes cut the rap music off. Sometimes and just feed yourself, like Arnold said, books. So it's
Mhm.
just what you put in is going to come out, because in society, it's just so much, even through the music now, and the news, of course. It's just so much negativity in what we see around us. It's just constantly trying to sway you in the
Mhm.
negative, direction.
Mhm.
So it's our responsibility, even as a young guy, just to always put positive information as much as you can. It's just like the food you eat. What you put in your body,
Mhm.
it's going to come out. It's just like nutrition for
Mhm.
the human body. You got to nourish your mind with positive nutrition.
Okay. What about you, Arnold? What
And,
advice would
and especially when you're a young man, some things that were so important to me when I was 25 and that I was struggling with don't really seem like that big of a deal right now,
you?
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So the one thing I always try to tell young brothers is never make a permanent decision for a temporary situation, right?
Mhm.
Because suicide is permanent, right? Doing
Mhm.
something to harm someone else is permanent. So
Yeah.
one thing you have to always realize, even though it may not look like it, is that this too shall pass, right?
Mhm.
This too shall pass. We're either going into a storm, we're in the middle of a storm, or we're coming out of a storm, right? So
Yep.
those are the three phases. And so always have to look to that as men, going back to something that Chauncey was talking about, along with the prayer life and being around those people, as men, we also have to become masters of compartmentalization, right?
Yes.
Mm.
You may not know where your how you're going to pay your car note or your mortgage, but you have to show up, whether it be to deal with a client or go to work or deal with a meeting or put out a fire, whatever the situation may be. So we have to also be able to master compartmentalizing things that we're dealing with to
Mhm.
be able to deal with something else and then be able to come back and address it. So those are some of the things, learn how to master that compartmentalization without
Mhm.
it making me stressed out, right? And as men, we have to do that. We have to multitask. And so, but as far as what I would suggest for that person to do is you have to get around positive people. There's so many more resources today than may have been 30 years ago with technology, being
Yeah.
able to Google things. There's sites, that where you can talk to someone, maybe a qualified therapist. And a
Mhm.
lot of times I found that people would prefer to talk to someone that they don't know, right?
Mhm.
Because they don't feel like it'll be this any type of judgment or anything. So there are all kind of ways that you can do that, and resources available. But the first thing you have to do is just get yourself in a place and around positive situation or environment where you can even see your way out of that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. Chauncey?
I agree with both of my respected brothers that sometimes you just gotta you have to. There are all kinds of resources out here, and it's really difficult sometimes when you want to talk to someone, because you said, what would you tell a young person if they don't want to talk to anyone? Unfortunately, they're not going to talk to anyone, which might lead to a negative result. You might
Yeah.
have to come out of what you normally do and
Mhm.
find that person, find that person that may not be the family member or friend that won't judge you,
Mhm.
that at least you could say everything that you need to say, so you
Yeah.
don't do anything detrimental to yourself or detrimental to others. Because if you're not going to talk, a lot of times you're not going to talk. And unfortunately, that's what happens with a lot of the young guys I work with. I mentor a lot of young guys, and it's difficult for them to talk because they said nobody ever wanted to listen to them. And I
Yeah.
said, maybe you didn't talk to the right person, you know. So I just want to encourage any young person to don't give up, try to find someone to talk to, and trust me, someone will listen to you. Just don't give up. Keep the faith, and somebody will listen to you.
I love that. Thank you. Curtis, what advice would you give a young brother who just though it's more month than money, they don't know how they're going to take care of their young family, it's one thing after another and they don't know what to do. They feel like they're alone, they don't have anybody to talk to, and life is real out there for a lot of people. What advice would you give that young man?
Uh, I would encourage every brother, if you're in the Baltimore vicinity, Baltimore, that would include the county, you can report or give us a call at Baltimore Brothers Incorporated. Our phone number is 410-710-7244. And our email, if you need that, would be Baltimore Brothers Inc.
Hmm.
at gmail.com. And in that program, under Safe Streets, out of the mayor's office, we've been working with a lot of brothers. We have graduations. We deal with all of that trauma, especially from the juvenile system. And in the juvenile system, they come in with a lot of problems that they deal with. And as I said, they pass that threshold of finally opening up and somebody they can trust. And we have great men, and we come from all faiths. Let's make that very clear. That's why we went with the name Baltimore Brothers Incorporated. And coming from all faiths, we got brothers coming from the church, lots of great pastors from the church, a lot of great brothers coming from imams, coming from different other mosques. And these were
Yeah.
mosques that we really didn't work with in the beginning. But we got our issues resolved and worked it out.
Yeah.
Ideologies, let's put it that way. Ideologies. That's what
Mhm.
makes us a problem with all. We
Mhm.
all have this ego.
Yeah.
Ego.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
the colors coming. We got we have some Caucasians in the program out of South Baltimore. We've had Spanish people, Latinos, and mostly our people. And that's
Mhm.
who we have to cater to because nobody else is going to help our people except us.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, nothing's perfect. That is one solution I would tell the brother to report to. And as I said, you can look them up under Baltimore Brothers Incorporated, which is BBI,
Yeah.
Baltimore Brothers Incorporated. And you can look that number under 410-710-7244 and
I
give them a
love
call
that.
and refer me as Brother Curtis. I'm sending this out to you to make that connection. And I promise you, you will not regret the program that we have and that we offer. Full scale program all through the summer. Matter of fact, this summer we have graduation for those who committed to come to that program
Yeah.
because you can't get everybody out.
Yeah.
And because of the homes, the environments they come from, not everybody. Remember, we got environments where you got one gang with another gang. So we have to have an intervention squad that will sit down and make sure we fix that beef that they got
Yeah.
before we can even get those two groups in together. So this is
Yeah.
not an easy task. So I ask, and we always ask for, brothers, anybody who wish to help out and be a big brother, which we used to have back in the day, the YMCA, where you had the big
Mhm.
brothers all the time.
Mhm.
Same thing. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. I think, and that was resources. That's so important. Now, if you're not in the Baltimore area, check, Google. You don't even have to know how to spell. Google say, did you mean to say this? Just search for resources in your area because there
Mhm.
might be a program out there for men. Check your religious institutions, check your community centers, check hospitals. And if you feel like you can't go on and you feel like you want to take yourself out of here, the hotline, the suicide hotline is 988. You can dial that from your phone, but check resources. And we're going to end with what ladies can do to help men, but I want to see some of the comments. When I am having one of those days, I usually put on some jazz, listen to a sermon or great motivational speaker. Taking a walk helps as well. Thank you, Leroy, for that. And I think that is important. Even when I'm coaching somebody, life coach, I prefer to do my sessions outside by the water. We're taking a walk. You know, it's not all stuffy, and we get to have conversations. We're at a bench in a gazebo. That's how I like to do it, because water is healing, and when you're outside in the environment, you automatically feel better. So again, we talked about that earlier where Arnold brought it up, and we're always at the water. We're going to find some water, you know, to be around. So it is not a coincidence that you feel better near water and nature and putting your feet in the grass. And we really have to learn to have fun again, because we cannot control life's outcome and some of the things that happen. And I think if people understand that some things we don't have control over, right? And we're stressing ourselves out into a tizzy, and that's causing other ailments and other health that you may not even know that's happening right now in your body. So when you can't control it, I'm just going to say, give it to God, release it, and let it go. Some things are just not for you to fix at that moment. Like Arnold said, compartmentalize some things and handle things as they go. So I want to end quickly, and I thank you guys for your time. How women can support. So supporting men in their lives, whether you're the auntie watching, whether you are the girlfriend, the wife, whether you are the sister, the cousin, whether you see men in your life struggling or you're not sure struggling, definitely have conversations with them. But all the men in your life, I want to just give a couple of tips that I have here. So how ladies can help create a safe space for conversation, encourage open conversation by letting the men in your life know it's okay to express their feelings without judgment. Listen actively and attentively without immediately trying to offer solutions. That's what we do. We try to offer solutions, and sometimes they don't even want to hear our voice. They just want to say what they want to say and release it. So we have to listen to that. We have to educate ourselves about mental health in men, learn about common mental health issues that affect men, such as depression, anxiety, and stress. And Charles openly talks about his bouts with depression. So we have to know that that's a real thing. Whether they're telling you that or not, the numbers are high in men. Understanding these challenges can help you recognize signs and offer informed support. Encourage professional help. Everybody is not going to need professional help, but if you feel like there's nothing that you can do and they're not doing anything, please encourage them to speak to someone, whether they're joining a group like Curtis talked about, whether they're at the gym with Chauncey or Charles or Arnold. They have to have some type of help. So gently suggest seeking help from a mental health professional if needed, such as we talked about, therapist, counselor, life coach. Normalize the idea of asking for help, you know, and y'all know, ladies, sometimes men got to feel like it's their idea when it's really ours. We know that. We'll talk about that later. But sometimes they got to think it's their idea, even though we're the one like, y'all know. Y'all don't know, but y'all know. Encourage professional help, as I talked about. Break down stigma, challenge societal norms that discourage men from expressing vulnerability, as all the gentlemen talked about earlier. Reassure them that strong and brave. You strong for asking for help. You're brave. We have to do that. We have to uplift them, because Charles talked about how it seems like they're weak and they don't want to feel weak in front of their women. They want to feel like, you know, King Kong standing on the building, superheroes. But we have to let them know that they don't always have to be a superhero. We can see the little boys in them sometimes, right? I met Charles, a little boy. Curtis, I met Charles's little boy. I know you knew his little boy.
That's
But I
beautiful.
met his little boy. And then also I want to piggyback on that, reassure them that it's strong and brave, like I said, to seek help and talk about their struggles. Number 5 on my list is to be patient and understanding. Recognize that opening up about mental health can be difficult and it may take time, as you talked about earlier. Be patient. If he is not ready to talk right away, let him know you're there when it's ready. Now, I know, ladies, sometimes it's hard. It's even been hard for me when I see something happening, and I ask a question, and I've learned him to kind of push back, try, I'm still working on that, because when you see the person that you love and care about hurting, that's what women want to do. We're nurturers, we want to help, but sometimes we have to make sure it's the right space and time to be able to do that. Number 5, be patient and understanding. Recognize that opening up about mental health can be difficult, and it may take time, as I talked about. Number 6, check in regularly. I'm big on checking in. Make it a habit. Check in on how they're feeling, especially during stressful times. Simple questions. How are you really doing? I ask you that all the time.
Mhm.
And that can open the door for deeper conversations. And stop saying, you already know you're gonna get, I'm good, I'm okay. And everybody is not always okay and good. So sometimes you do have to dig deeper, but you have to learn the men in your life, whether it's your husband, boyfriend, brother, cousin, father, whoever the men in your life are. Number 7 on my list, support healthy habits, encourage activity to promote mental well-being, such as exercises we talked about. We always talk about getting proper sleep, healthy eating, and so on and so on. The gym, as all of the guys said, encourage that they do work out or go to the gym, or maybe go to the gym with them, or because that does release the endorphins that are needed. Number 8 on my list, share your own feelings, ladies, so they don't feel like they're sharing. If you share, sometimes they'll share back, and express your issues, whatever you're going through, and show that it's normal to have ups and downs, because nobody wants to feel alone. Demonstrate that talking about emotions is not gendered. It's not a gender trait. It's a human trait. So it's not a gender trait, right? It's not just us feeling that way. They are too. But when you open up, like I say, for this podcast, Unveiled Voices, when you share your story, you give others permission. I'm almost done. I have 10. Encourage positive social connections. Support, as I talked about earlier, support him maintaining friendships and social connections, which are vital for emotional support. Men need other men. Women don't trip when they say that they're going hang out with the fellas. They need that. Just like you need it, they need it. Help create opportunities for him to connect with others, like Curtis was talking about, joining groups or activities. My last one on my list is celebrate their vulnerability. Praise and encourage when they open up about their feelings, reinforcing that vulnerability is strength and it's not weakness. Acknowledge and acknowledge the courage, and tell them that you're proud of them. It takes to share, to express appreciation for his or her honesty. How'd I do, fellas?
That's good. I think that
Good
was
Great
job.
job. Great
almost
job.
well.
Okay.
Good 10 points.
On that.
Strong
Okay.
J. Strong J.
Okay. Whew. Now I can sit back a little bit. I was like, okay, that's what I thought anyway. But I don't know. I got to hear from the men's. What you think about my list?
It's powerful. I think this was a great conversation. We need to continue it. Have a part 2. But yeah,
sure.
it's to have this dialogue, especially with men and women. It will give us better relationships, better communities, and a better world.
Yeah. And we all just trying to figure it out.
Yes.
Like the women don't have the monopoly on, trying to figure it out, and neither do the men. We're more alike than different. Final words, fellas. I'm going to start with Arnold. I'm going to go to Chauncey, and then I'm going to go to Curtis, and then you, babe. Final words for this
So again,
conversation.
yeah, so again, I'm just grateful and honored to be able to share this platform. Thank you for inviting me on here, Kendall. Honored to share the platform with my brother Chauncey, Curtis, and Charles as well. I also just want to publicly thank Charles, my brother, as well as for being my trainer. I've been working out with Charles for a while now, and I'm just grateful to you, brother. Just want to give you your flowers now. Your steadfastness and your commitment has literally helped save my life. So I'm thankful to you, grateful, and just honored to be able to call you my brother. So I just wanted to give you those flowers, brother. I love you, man.
Love you, man. Appreciate that.
I like when men tell each other they love them. It's so cool. I love it.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's a beautiful thing.
It
Arnold
is.
said everything that best that probably could be said. And I just want to say again, thank you, Charles. I'm delighted to be here with this panel, and I love each and every one of you. One thing you're going to hear tonight from these four men is a bunch of love. Bunch of love.
That's right.
I love it. Curtis?
I ditto on all of that and back on all of that. I appreciate it being a part of this podcast. And my brother Charles, we go back since like I said, we was like 5 years old, 6 years old. And I mean, that's a long time friendship. Beautiful family, mother and father, brother. And I mean, they took me in as their own. Mom cooked. Mom didn't play around when she cooked in that kitchen. I can tell you that for sure. And as the brother said, Brother Arnold and the others, I give you your flowers, Charles, in this business and in all the things that you've been doing, because you've been an inspiration to me, whether you know it or not, but you have. Every time I see you out there working, it gives me inspiration to get up and keep going. Like you said, when days you just don't feel like going, man, you just say, forget it. So, yeah, Charles, you the man. You definitely the man today. I'm telling you, you definitely my brother, and love you too, black man, and all of y'all brothers. Love y'all all, black man.
See the man, he got his little shirt, his little chest out.
Got his taco meat showing.
He got his taco meat with his little chain on. Don't tell him nothing.
She said little Jeff.
No, well, you know.
Well, I appreciate. I just love you guys tremendously. You guys are handpicked. When I want to reach out, a childhood friend, Arnold, one of my best friends currently. Chauncey is a mentor and a friend. Even in this business, he's been a pioneer and been consistent as long as I have, maybe longer, in health and wellness, which I know is encouraging to see him out there grinding and knowing that he's going through the same thing. All you guys. So I love you guys tremendously, and especially you, babe, for having this platform. Even the enemy tries to interfere and hinder this from happening. So I know it's going to be powerful beyond even this live segment. And this being there to really put up, as men, we have to have the right person to put up with us when we're not the best person. So to be able to endure what I go through and still see the good in me, that's very important to have someone that can do that. Because I can be a piece of work.
Ooh, it ain't easy, y'all. It ain't easy.
But thank you guys.
But it's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's worth it.
Yeah, we got.
But none of us are easy. Yeah. When you're dealing with childhood, none of us are easy. People pretend, but nobody is easy. Right.
All right, guys.
All right. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. This conversation does continue, right? So leave a message, leave a comment. If you want to get in contact with any of these brothers, definitely drop your information in there. Please, these are the type of conversations that need to go viral. There's a lot of foolishness online, but these are the conversations that we need to promote. And hopefully this conversation today, of course, we can't cover everything, but this kind of conversation, hopefully it sparks another conversation, and someone, even if it's one person, calls to seek help, calls a friend, tells a brother they love them, because you never know what that can do to somebody just by saying, I love you, I appreciate you, because some people don't feel valued. Some people feel like they're not heard. Their voices are not unveiled. They have the veil and the shield up. So just by breaking the ice, by saying, hey, I love you, I'm here for you, here's a resource for you, it can change the trajectory of somebody's right now. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you all so very much. Thank you for taking the time to do this. God bless y'all. Peace. Thank you.
God bless you too.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. That was good, babe.